Welcome to Mental Performance Unleashed with Emily Heird.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to an all-new episode of Mental Performance Unleashed with Emily Heird, a licensed psychotherapist and certified mental performance mastery coach. I'm your host, Mike Leon. Emily here helps high-performing professionals like attorneys build the mental fitness that fuels clarity, resilience, and sustainable success. And in today's episode, we're unpacking the mental demands of leadership. There's constant decision-making, balancing empathy and execution. Emily will explain how leaders can protect their focus and lead effectively without burning out. Emily, it's good to see you as always. I did want to ask you on the onset here because leadership can be mentally demanding in so many ways, and a lot of times it doesn't show up on a calendar. How would you describe the kind of mental load that comes with leading other people?
Well, thank you, Mike, for having me. And yeah, leadership is you aren't just managing the tasks that need to be done. You are also managing people and everything that comes along with people. So if we think about it from a coaching perspective, you are no longer an individual teammate, but you are a coach that is now keeping track of all of the players on the team. You are thinking about who's good at what positions, what skills need to be developed, who's underperforming, who's at risk of being injured or who is injured, and if all the different teammates are getting along or if there is conflict brewing. So this is you are going from strategy only to managing people and the psychology of leadership, which is a completely different ballgame and kind of carries in an invisible emotional weight along with it.
And why do you think there is that mental shift from being this individual contributor to being someone that's a leader? You see it all the times when individual players then get into coaching, right? It's just a different shift. What makes the shift mentally so challenging?
Well, one of the shifts is that most people in the workplace aren't given leadership training. So they're really good at owning their work and executing their role and being in charge of it and being in control of it. But leadership is a completely different ball game than the game itself, performing as an individual player. So as an individual contributor, you knew if you were hitting a home run at your game. You know, the project was filed, the brief was filed, you won at the court case. It's kind of immediate feedback and something that you have complete control over. As a leader or as a coach, you may be working with someone for 3 months before you see improvement with them. Your wins are not always as direct, and they're sometimes invisible. And then there's the other piece of the identity. And I see a lot of imposter syndrome kind of crop up when people take over leadership roles, because in the individual contributor role, you felt very competent in what you were doing. And now you are being asked to do something completely new, and you aren't feeling as competent in that job yet. Then we also have the piece of like the results are a little bit more out of your control. When you are relying on other people on that team to execute on the field and your performance as a leader is in their hands a little bit, then there's a lot more anxiety that comes up. And so that's another reason why this shift can be difficult.
What about some of the thinking patterns or even the daily habits that tend to drain the mental energy from a leader? What are some of those?
Yeah, so four I commonly see. One is going to be that kind of that savior complex. I need to fix everything. I need to get in and help my team with everything. This keeps us more stressed. Your stress system is more activated. And then it also prevents you from doing that higher level work that you need to be doing as a leader if you're always in the work with your team. It also doesn't allow them to grow in their capabilities if you're stepping in to rescue them every time. The second one is going to be perfectionism can rear its ugly head in leadership, especially in delegation. It's very challenging to let go of work and allow people to run with it, to make mistakes, to then give them constructive feedback and help them, mentor them to continuous improvement over time, when that voice in your mind might just say, it's just easier if I do this myself. And it may feel like that in the moment, but in the long run, you are going to hit a ceiling for what you are capable of producing if it's only you versus if you have an entire team behind you.
Yeah.
The third energy drain I see is the availability trap, feeling the need to be always available for people. Again, this kind of keeps your focus fragmented. If anyone's allowed to interrupt you on email, Slack, text you, walk in your door, I've got a quick question. It's great to be available, but you also do need to set boundaries and protect some deep working time for yourself. And then the last one is the mental rehearsal. All the time that we spend in our mind thinking about conversations that haven't happened yet, or that talk you need to have with an employee that might bring up feelings of anxiety and then you want to avoid it. So all of those take mental bandwidth.
So, Emily, then what practices can you recommend to these folks during these high pressure moments that can kind of help them stay calm and think clearly in real time?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that as a leader, your energetic state is contagious to the entire team. If you walk into a meeting or if you're sending emails, having conversations from a place of anger, frustration, negative energy, then they all feel that through emotional contagion and their stress levels are going to spike. So, and there's a difference between passion and intensity and fear and intensity when you are a leader. So knowing that coming into the room in these situations from a place of calm confidence is going to help your team. So again, the deep breathing, the anchor and adjust method. So anchor yourself physically, put your head back, put your shoulders back. All of these things are going to be signals to your team for how you are going to lead them through these situations with mental clarity and not out of fear. And then you can also adjust your tone of voice and the volume of your voice. You can slow down your speech. All of these are giving signals to your team for how you are going to lead them through this time.
Emily, in a previous episode, we were talking about decision fatigue. How can leaders out there recognize the early signs of decision fatigue, and how can they restore that clarity in the moment?
Yeah, so decision fatigue looks like, you're spending extra time figuring out what to wear in the morning or what you should have for lunch, but you're making quick decisions on, a $100,000 budget decision. It's reckless in some ways and then taking longer in other areas. Other signals are going to be, you defer things, everything that you can as possible. That I call this the worst question on the face of the earth. Like, what do you want for dinner? No one wants to answer that question at the end of the day after making decisions all day long. So if that question makes you want to scream, that's a signal that you are experiencing decision fatigue. So some of these, you want to look at how much you can delegate to your team. I was talking to a client just this morning about setting up a system so that everyone is following the same process every week, and that will eliminate a lot of decisions. Mapping out agendas and templates for meetings. As much as you can automate for you and your team, it's really going to help reduce decisions.
I take the chicken out the freezer so that way we don't have to make that decision, Emily. Now,
There you go.
let me ask you about delegating to folks, because delegating obviously can help lighten the workload. But from this mental performance standpoint, what would you advise, or what helps leaders out there delegate effectively while maintaining the clarity?
So delegation, it is one thing to hand off a task. It's another thing to let someone else have ownership over doing that task. So if you delegate something, but you're constantly worrying if that person is working on it or how they're working on it, micromanaging can kind of come into the picture here. This is your own anxiety about how a person is doing something or if they're working on it. So part of it is letting go of control and giving someone else an opportunity to work on it and bring to you what they have completed. Then you need to go back and review it with a coach's lens and look at it not from a confirmation bias of, see, I knew they would make mistakes, or, yep, this would have been easier if I did it myself. But what did they do well? And how do they need to improve? Where do I need to mentor them so that they can continue to improve their skills? And over time, there will be less corrective feedback that needs to happen. So part of delegation is really being able to build trust in your team and reiterating this process of allowing them ownership over the work, bringing it to you and reviewing it for feedback really builds trust with your team, which then is what leads to a high performing team.
And doesn't that also create at least like some team independence type framework, and it'll protect the leader's bandwidth? Or how can you build stronger systems and decision pathways to kind of help with that?
Yeah, so one of the things I talk to my clients about is going from a coach-led team to eventually a players-led team. You want to train them and give them all the resources that they need, but eventually you want them to be driving the bus. You want them to be holding each other accountable. So some ways that you can do this are if someone comes to you with a question, instead of immediately answering that question, you want to ask them what are some of your solutions? What are some of your ideas for how you can handle this? So you get them to start thinking through problems rather than relying on you and becoming dependent on you for answers. You can create kind of what are decision approvals, like pre-decision approvals. So maybe you have a team and they have a budget and you say, okay, if it costs under $500, you can go ahead and spend it. But if it's over $500, then you need to run it through the appropriate channels. So some of those things can free up your mental bandwidth to work on the higher levels of things.
Emily, what about empathy in all of this? How can I know that empathy is vital, but it could also be draining. How can someone show genuine care for their team members without carrying everyone else's stress when they get home?
This is a great question because the emotional load is something that can really contribute to burnout. So when it comes to empathy, it's important to understand that really the nature of empathy is this joining in. And when you join into someone else's emotional experience, you also feel their emotions. So what I encourage people to do is to practice compassion instead. And whether you want to call it compassion or empathetic compassion, it's going from this mindset, this place of I'm joining in with you in this pain or in this challenge and kind of feeling stuck, to this higher level of, oof, I hate that you're going through this, kind of validating whatever it is that's happening. And then how can I help? How can I support you? What do you need from me? So you are staying one level up and being a support system rather than joining in fully to their emotional experience. And then I would encourage you, before you leave the office that day or as you wrap up your workday, that you get out a piece of paper and you write down and you let go of the things that your team or your staff or your clients are experiencing that aren't really yours to carry.
So, Emily, as we land the plane here on this episode, leaders out there listening to this, maybe they feel a little stretched thin by the constant demands of the daily workload. What's one daily mental performance habit you would advise them on that can help strengthen their clarity and capacity over time?
Well, there are a number that I could mention here, but one thing that I'm going to mention is time for yourself and time for movement and exercise, because what that does is it helps release stress. It generates the neurotransmitters that your brain needs to not only feel better, but to be kind of have optimal performance. Research shows that when we exercise, when we get movement, we are sharper in our decision making. We are more efficient in our work. We are less stressed and more calm. So while I can give a number of strategies, this is one thing that I'm going to point out today, that if you don't have exercise and movement incorporated into your day, then start by taking a walk this afternoon if you start to feel overloaded or the mental clarity is diminishing, and see what you notice after that walk.
Emily, thanks as always for the time and insights on this. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
And that's it for today's episode of Mental Performance Unleashed with Emily Heird. If you want to learn more about how Emily helps high-performing professionals strengthen their mental fitness, you want to get more of those tips that she said she had, visit vantageviewcoaching.com today. As always, like, subscribe, leave a review and comment, or share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. I'm Mike Leon. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.